So before you started vocal coaching, what did you understand about vocal coaching? What did you think it was?
Well, I've worked with lots of different vocal coaches in the past, even as far back as when I was at school. I was in the school choir. And I think, there are many coaches out there and everybody has their own idea about technique. So I've been taught all kinds of stuff in the past and I've never really found anything that was beneficial or really helped me. But I've always loved to sing, so I just kind of enjoyed just doing it however I thought, it was done.
Looking back at the quality of your voice before you had vocal coaching with me, what did you think it was like?
I always thought I had quite a strong voice. I felt like it was something that needed to be tamed. And in the past, I have had problems with doing a lot of live work, losing my voice. I think just because of over-singing and, in some places even shouting. Sometimes when you've got a really loud band behind you and it's very difficult to hear yourself and you just, you're kind of fighting against them. And of course, your vocal cords don't like that, so they go on strike.
And since you've had coaching, what difference has it made for you?
Since I've been coaching with you, actually, I said something when I played at Shepherd's Bush Empire recently. I said that you've changed my life. And it sounds very dramatic, but it's absolutely true because, because singing to me, it is my life, I've always sung, I always want to sing for the rest of my life. And now I have the freedom and the ability to do that. My voice has really matured, it's really grown, and now whatever state my voice is in, however tired I am, even if I'm sick, I know exactly, where to place my voice and it'll do the job.
Good. So people have watched David on telly and they might be thinking, what do those guys actually do? Mm-hmm. How would you describe what it is that I do when I come and see you that makes that difference for you?
I think you explain to me and make me understand how my voice works. And it's, it is quite difficult to explain, isn't it? I think it's just an understanding of the voice and, of breathing and resonance and placement and just a way to sing. And it's like anything, when you learn a technique, at first you really have to think about things. But then eventually you do it so much and it just is very, very natural.
So how would you describe something, say, like breathing?
Breathing. I think breathing sometimes is something that goes, especially when you're nervous. And it's very good to just keep that in mind, because if you start breathing high, which you sometimes do when you're nervous, or also if you're dancing, if you're moving about a lot on stage and you're getting out of breath, you breathe and, and your voice is going to suffer because you need that breath and that support. So it's very important, to remember to breathe nice and deep, get good deep breaths, nice and low. That really helps. Obviously with the Spice Girls I did do a lot of dancing and moving about, and that was always very helpful. And even now, even though I don't do a lot of choreography, I do like to be
move.
Yeah, I'm very active on the stage. I like to jump around and I don't want to be hindered in any way. I want my voice to be the best that it can be. I don't want to be restricted with my movements. So having breath control is very, very important.
And we talk about this thing, placement. And that's sometimes a hard thing to describe, but how would you describe placement?
Forward placement is, how we always work. And it's very difficult. For me, it kind of feels like I'm singing just behind my nose. So if you can feel the vibration of your voice when you're talking, and it feels, for me, it's about mid. It's quite middly. It's not right back in my throat. It's not middly. But when I sing forward here. And it sounds funny when you talk, but when you sing, it kind of works. And then, the more disciplined you are, and the more you use your forward placement, you can move it about a little bit, and you can play with the tones.
And what difference has forward placement specifically made to your voice?
I think it's helped in its strength. It's also made it, in places, a lot thicker. And it's funny, isn't it, talking about voice like this? But when you hear the terms and you listen, it's like describing a fine wine. And it's a bit oaky. No, not at all. But no, it has depth and and colour. We add colours to the voice and lots of different things.
Fantastic.
Like that.
So how do you go about warming up your voice or exercising your voice before you're about to go and sing?
Warming up is very, very important. You know, for one, you want to go out there and you want your pitching to be great. You know, you want that freedom and flexibility, and also you don't want to damage your voice. So it's very, very important to warm up. And I have a wonderful tape. But it's quite funny because I have the tape that we've worked on before, and there's lots of, you know, exercises that do sound like you're a bit barking when you do them, but it is quite important. You know, sometimes when I'm touring a lot and my voice is very, very tired, I have to start quite gently and just work it in, and it can take quite a while to get warm.
And what do you start with?
I start with humming.
And why do you start with humming?
Humming's very good. Humming is very good because you can't really hurt yourself humming. You're going to get your placement quite easily, and also you're not going to do any damage because it's quite a gentle place.
Fantastic.
To start.
Now, something I've seen every now and again when
I feel like it's an exam. Correct.
Carrie's just marking you up, just making sure you know. We'll be talking about this later next week.
Okay.
So I've seen you sometimes when you're on stage, you do this thing where you just put your finger to your ear, and singers do that quite a lot on stage. Why do they do that?
They're making an excuse. They're pretending they can't hear themselves because they're singing out of tune. No, I do this. When I'm on stage, I wear in-ear monitors, but in my left monitor, there's these like little stoppers, and I take the stopper out so I can get more bottom end. But sometimes, especially on very loud songs, songs of mine like Going Down, Here It Comes Again, the big rock numbers, where the guitars and the drums are very loud, I need a little bit more of me. So just to get a little bit more, I just block it out. Because although, you know, these monitors, you can have whatever mixing you like. You can have, you know, loads of guitar, a little bit keyboards, and it's always loads and loads and loads of voice. Because, you know, the poor little voice is always the quiet thing. So loads of that in. But it also stops a lot of the surrounding sound and the front of house and anything else that's going on, the screaming, you know, the shouting, the whistling. So that really, really helps. But sometimes just to cover that little stopper gives me a bit more so I can really concentrate on my pitch.
Okay, so like the tuning to keep you in tune and stuff. Fantastic. Now, let's talk a little bit about high notes, developing your high range. Has your voice changed in terms of the range that you have? Yeah,
I definitely think it's changed quite a lot. I think the biggest difference in my voice has been over the breaking points. I think, you know, we've really come now where sometimes it's quite difficult to hear the break from, you know, the chest voice up into the head voice. And I have two breaks in my voice because I'm very lucky. I've got a very... Well, not very big. I've got quite a big range. Yeah, and that's really has expanded since we've worked together. And that is, you know, purely through placement. And also, you know, warming up and vocal coaching, it's, you know, vocal cords, it's a muscle, you know, it's like me going to the gym, and you know, and it's important to make it strong and keep it fit.
What about your low range?
My low range has really, really changed.
Love that.
It has. We love the low range because I don't think I ever classed myself as having a low voice, and I was never confident singing low notes, but now I love it, and it's been really good to get that confidence and that clarity, and I've really been able to, you know, to play with tones and make it really rich and, you know, dark and or keep it forward and make it sound high even though it's low. So it's nice to just have, you know, all these things available to you to play with.
Your paint palette, as you say. How important is, what role does confidence play when you come to sing?
I think that confidence is probably 90% of singing. I would say it is that important. You know, I always say everybody can sing. It just depends whether you can sing in tune or not. And that doesn't matter. If you enjoy singing, just sing. But confidence, I mean, I know some people who could be great singers, but because they haven't got the confidence, you know, they're not. And it's a shame.
And how important is it for you to be able to experiment and have a safe space when you're singing, like when you're rehearsing and stuff?
Well, you know, I am still very, very self-conscious about things, you know, in front of people, and you don't want to sound silly or terrible, and you don't, you know, you wonder what people think about you. So yeah, you know, it is important to have that safe environment to just check things out and have a go. And you know, when I was a kid, I used to listen to Whitney Houston all the time, and I'd be like screeching in the bathroom when everybody was out. But I think it stood me in really good stead, really, because, you know, now I love to sing, and I think starting early as well, starting quite young, I think is a good thing.
One of the things, I suppose, that makes you feel vulnerable if you're singing on your own is trying to do ad-libs. how does, if I was to say to you in one of our lessons, right, just ad-lib your way through this, how does that make you feel?
Well, I'd take a deep breath and I'd think, oh, and I'm not going to swear on the video. But, you do think, oh, no, not these. But it's really good for you. And there's this thing, it's like training as well. You get in a zone. And once you're in the zone and you're just flying and you do all these great things, going in and out of the key and, the notes and everything. But once you start thinking about it, then you start squealing and making silly noises. And it can be really exciting because, sometimes in the studio, it's funny, when I finished a song, we'll do an ad-lib track. And, whoever I'm working with, whoever's producing the track, will say, oh, just do whatever you like. And sometimes, you come up with loads of great little things, but there's loads of rubbish along the way.
Exactly.
You've just kind of got to get through that to get the good stuff. But you can really get in a zone, and once you're in that zone, that's when all the best stuff comes.
The magical stuff.
Yeah, adventurous.
And so when you come to sing a song, like when you were recording your latest album, for instance, what do you do in preparation for performing a whole song?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's always really difficult because a lot of the work that we do in the studio is very fragmented. But I always sing, I do, when I'm recording, I do at least 10 tracks of the whole song. And then we'll go back and fix things. And then sometimes, because of different dynamics within the song, we'll have to just concentrate on the bridge for a little while and build the chorus, and it works like that. But when it comes to working on stage, it's very, very different. And also in the studio, sometimes we have overlaps of the voice, so you have to work things, Here It Comes Again is one, the verse goes right in over the chorus, but I've had to, work that differently for live. And the thing is, when you're doing stuff live, when you've got a new single, it's really quite daunting because the songs are quite new, to perform. And when you're doing TVs and you want it to be great, and it's always very, very nerve-wracking. And basically, it just comes with practice.
Because I know sometimes you'll do something and you'll think, oh, this is really difficult, and then you'll do that same song 6 months later and you think...
Well, like Never Be the Same Again now, when we first started working on Never Be the Same Again, it was so difficult to sing. And now it's like, it's a walk in the park.
Fantastic. And what about preparing a song in terms of working through what bits to make loud or the gear changes? Talk me through that a little bit.
Well, I think, I've always been quite lucky in that I think I'm quite a dramatic person. I'm not a dramatic person, but I'm a dramatic artist, I think. And so for me, I always think it's very important to really mean what you're singing. And so to think about the words that you're singing. I think so many people are so worried about the sounds and the kind of the words, and the meaning all gets lost. So I think it's quite a natural thing, that there's always a nice build, and the dynamics usually come quite naturally if you're really putting your emotion into the song.
Now, you are without doubt the most healthy person that I know. So how do you keep your voice healthy?
Well, I think it's very important when you're singing to know the things to avoid, really. It's quite disgusting, but dairy products make you a bit phlegmy. And you don't want to... I was going to say something really hard, but you don't want a frog in your throat when you're going to sing. So I'd avoid those, definitely. Fizzy drinks aren't great. In fact, I'm rubbish. And when I'm on stage, I can't even drink water because I just get burps. If you ever watch me singing and I turn around like this, I'm usually going, So fizzy drinks are a no-no. And always be careful about cold water. Make sure your water's room temp, because cold water is just going to freeze up them vocal cords again.
Now, you sometimes also steam your voice, don't you? What does that do?
I do steam. Well, I steam with Friar's Balsam, which is available at any local pharmacy. and it's just an old cold cure remedy, something that you recommended me, actually. And you just stick a bit in your boiling water, head over, over it in a towel, 10 minutes. And it just really, it moisturises the vocal cords, because sometimes when they're tired, if you're doing a lot of flying, they get very, very dry, and sometimes swollen as well. So it's good to inhale, and this really moistens them, and also can help reduce the swelling a little bit.
Now, you're someone who I know, you've obviously had extreme, huge, massive, instant fame. But you're someone who I know would be making their demos in their bedroom if you hadn't had all that success. You're someone who's passionate about music. How important is that passion to you as an artist?
I think it's really important. I think, to use an old phrase, it sorts out the men from the boys. You know, at the end of the day, you know, there are a lot of people in the music industry, and I think the people that are going to survive are the ones that really care about what they're doing. And I think, you know, that passion about music makes you, you know, become very disciplined, and you look after your voice and you realise how important it is. So I'd say, you know, passion is a very important thing.
Have you got any tips on singing in the studio, like headphones and things like that? I mean, what's the best thing to do?
You know, play around, really. When I was with the Spice Girls, I always used to have one ear off. And Emma used to always wear two ears. And I just couldn't do it because I needed a bit of the room as well. I needed to hear what I sounded like just out in the room. But now I really play around. It depends what I'm working on. If I'm doing something quite intimate and close to the mic, sometimes it's nice to have the two. And it's great in the studio, you know, I'd say always really make sure you're happy with the sound you've got in your cans. Big headphones underneath. Cans, headphones. In your headphones, I don't want to sound like a div. But yeah, it's very important to, you know, to get exactly what you want in there. And so you can really play around with your voice, because the studio is a great place because you can sing so quietly and you can get such, you know, a beautiful, even like breathy tones. And live, you're not going to be able to do that, you know, because you've got to be making enough noise for the sound guy to hear you. So it's a different ball game, but it's fun in the studio because you can really experiment.
And if there are people watching this programme that say, how did Melanie go from just... was she training and then she suddenly was in the Spice Girls and was hugely famous? What advice would you give to people that are preparing for that moment that, you know, where it all happens for them? What can they do to prepare for that experience vocally? I would say just be very disciplined. You know, take your coaching very seriously and always warm up. Don't neglect your voice. Don't go a week without doing, you know, your warm-up. You know, I'd like to do it every day, but I think, you know, sometimes I have to be careful as well and take a break. If you've been doing a lot of singing, sometimes it needs to heal. It's like, you know, it's like working out. You can't go to the gym every day. But yeah, no, definitely, you know, prepare yourself like that. Get nice and strong and know what you're doing and be confident. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.